Hello there, I'm Jim Hudson. Welcome to tape 2 of our series on the instruction with the hammer Dulcimer. I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope that we can share some things with you on this tape that you will not only enjoy and have fun with, but that will really be beneficial for you as you go ahead and expand your playing abilities on the instrument. If you have tape 1 of the series, there are several things that we covered on there that would be beneficial for you to remember. And if you don't have it, I want to go ahead and cover it to make sure that you are at this point where we're going to begin with this tape. And we talked about hammering techniques and some things that you should try to do or maybe you shouldn't try to do. And one of the things we talked about was in playing chords to try to work with a left-right hammer pattern, but to avoid getting into a situation where your hands begin to cross up. In this example, using a 1-3-5-8 chord, I begin with the left, right. That makes my left hand free to pick up this one and then come up and get my 8 there. If I begin that the opposite direction and start with my right hand, play the left hand, then I'm immediately into the situation I'm talking about. And if this is happening to you on a pretty regular basis with your instrument, it may be that you just need to go back and relearn your basic hammer patterns and start the song with the other hand, and it should rectify itself. Also, we talked about how to hold hammers, and one of the things that you should strive to do is hold the hammer loosely between your thumb and your finger. I've seen people hold it this way or this way. That's entirely a matter of comfort for you. But hold it loosely enough that the hammer can strike the string and bounce back up. And then you stop that action by merely squeezing down with the back of your thumb or by using the index or your middle finger. Now, I usually use my thumb and just squeeze down a little bit to stop that pressure so that I get a clean individual note as I strike. There are times that you would want to incorporate into your playing an effect much like this, which is accomplished just by holding down on the hammer and forcing it to go ahead and bounce on the strings. Most of the time that's not going to be something that you're going to want to do on every note of the song. And if that's happening to you, go back and just work on an exercise where you strike the string one time and begin to work through. And you'll see how this particular move comes into play a little bit later on in this tape. As we work through this session with you, I'm going to spend a lot of time on some very specific songs. We'll deal with a lot of detail on how the embellishments are done, how they would be used, and we'll try to start with one embellishment and then add another one and work through them and incorporate as many of the embellishments as we can into several songs so that you can see the application. We'll deal with some different styles of songs as we go through so that you can see not so much how to learn the song itself, but how to do the embellishment so you can go on and embellish a lot of other tunes as you play. If you have tape 1 of the series, you know that there was a story that I told in there, and the moral of it was this. If you don't use an embellishment, you'll never know when you should use it, and the only way you'll know when you should is by doing it too soon and too often. So we'll deal a great deal with working through these embellishments, and you'll also notice we'll follow the same format with this recording that we did with the first tape. Between each segment, each thing that we talk about, we'll fade out, follow up and write the numbers from your meter on your VCR down on the tape and use that then to index back through. Because it would really be, I think, beneficial for you if you can go through and master each segment and each embellishment as we work through. And that'll make it much easier for you then to go ahead and learn to put them all together. So sit back and have a good time with me. I hope that you enjoy this, and we hope that you learn a lot, and we'll get right on into these tunes. Going back to tape 1, we spent some time with a song called The Irish Washerwoman, a nice little jig. And one of the first embellishments that I learned to use, and probably one of the easiest to pick up, we'll spend some time with in this little short segment, is just a one-note roll. And the old joke is, where's the Lone Ranger? He's gone to the dump, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump. And that's the effect that we're after with the hammers, and it's accomplished by striking once with the right hand, letting it bounce, and then hitting the third note with the left hand. And it can't be a like this, it has to be a, and it's hard to slow this down. I really hope that you'll be able to see what I'm doing pretty well up to speed, because I have to depend on the hammer to hit and bounce and then wind up here. But the effect that you get And if you take that up to tempo, it really makes a nice little effect. spend some time with this and practice it. Again, it's a to-de-dump. And if you do like I just did and accidentally get 3 licks in there, it's okay. The general effect is to let the right hand bounce and end up on the left hand. And you can pretty well control that again, like we talked about, with the pressure on the thumb. And this is a real nice little lick. In a minute we'll see how that goes ahead and expands on into a 2-note roll and a 3-note roll. But spend some time with this segment, and when you feel comfortable with the roll on 1 note, then go ahead and let's go forward and we'll pick up another embellishment. As we deal with each of these embellishments, I can't stress too much or too often that speed is not the most important thing. Playing accuracy is. And being able to do cleanly and neatly the embellishments that we're working on is the most important thing. Speed will come in time. The more you practice and the more familiar you become with the embellishment, the easier it will be for you to bring it up to speed. Here about 2 months ago, I was in Canton, Ohio, and I was playing Blackberry Blossoms. And I had a lot of trouble learning the song because it does move quickly. And I fell into a psychological trap that I can do this now. I must not be doing it fast enough because it's not difficult anymore. And consequently, I played the song way too fast. And a lady pointed this out to me. She said, "What was that?" And I said, "It was Blackberry Blossoms." And she said, "My, when you play it that fast, it doesn't sound like much." And she wasn't even able to recognize what I was doing because I was going so fast. Each song, especially slow songs, you can completely wreck the mood of the song by playing it too fast. And each song is going to demand its own tempo and its own expression. And the embellishments that I'm showing you, again, work through them slowly and learn to use them, because this is what really enhances the ability to play slow. Once you begin playing fast, there's not much time to do most of the embellishments that we're going to be using anyway. So we'll be dealing with them again on a slow basis. Now, in the last segment, we covered the 1-note roll. And I want to expand that and show you how you can take it on into a 2-note roll or a 3-note roll or even on into a 4-note roll. And then we'll try to work it into a song. Now you take the same principle of the hit and the bounce in the hit and convert that over into a hit, a push. And as you're pushing up, hit with the left hand and let this fall on the 2nd note up. Now what we're playing, to go back and review just a little bit, are third harmonies. This is your melody note, then this becomes your melody note, and this becomes a harmony note, which is a third below you, 1, 2, 3. So we're dealing with third harmonies, and what you get is an effect like this. So instead of playing 1 note and another note, you're actually picking up 4 notes in there, in the 1 note, and then the roll up to the 2nd one. So now we're dealing with a 2-note roll. Hit, hit, and push, and let it fall. Hit, push, hit, and let it fall. And you sometimes can get a double bounce on this one and enhance it just a little bit more because you're picking up even more additional notes as you're working your way through. Now if we take that a step further and change our hammer pattern and begin on with the left hand rather than with the right like we did on that one, begin with the left, hit with your right hand, and then as this one is hitting and bouncing, shove it across the bridge and let it hit over on this side. And then we're into a 3-note roll. So we've expanded from a roll on 1 note, 2, and now we're going hit, hit, push, and let fall. And this is, again, it's not a conscious hit, 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 because you can do that, and you can do it effectively, but when you get into a song where you need that rolling effect, where you're playing 3 notes to lead into 1 note, you need that roll. Now let's take it one step further, and we're going to cover a lot just in this short segment, so you'll need to spend some time, a great deal of time, going back and working on each one of these, but one automatically leads into the next. So when you master one, you're already halfway there to go ahead and get that next embellishment, and then you're 2/3 of the way into the next one. So you just keep getting closer and closer. The 4-note roll, same principle, start left. In fact, to make this easier for you, let's review a little bit further. We had talked about in the first tape using a 1-3-5-8 chord structure. Now that's the first note of the scale, count up the second, use the third note of the scale, the fourth note, come down over here and pick up the fifth note, skip the sixth and the seventh, and play the eighth. And to do this, we always start, in this case, with the left hand, the right hand, the left, and the right. So we keep our left-right hammer pattern, play the third, first, the third, the fifth, and the eighth notes of the scale. Now here's where the technique comes in. We hit, and then as these are bouncing, push and push. Hit, and as you're hitting here, begin pushing and let this hammer fall over onto the left side of the bridge, and then let this one fall on the right side. So what we get is a 4-note roll. Now you would use that on something like Planks de Irwin. The song starts. So we can use the 4-note roll and come into it. Now I used a little variation there called, what do you call that silly thing? Trill, like you would use on a piano or like you hear flute players use, which we will cover. Right now, just master the rolls. 4 notes. You can change that and use the 3 notes. And some of this stuff I know is so hard to pick up by, first of all, by watching and seeing it done where it's actually up to tempo. But it's something that as a hammer dulcimer player you're going to have to learn to contend with, because you have to depend on the momentum of the hammer, the force of the strings, and the power of the bounce, and the speed of the move, all put together to get the hammer from point A across to point B as you're adding the other things that happen to fall into the middle of it. So let's look at it one more time, and then we'll move on into another segment. We've got a 1-note roll, a 2-note roll where it's hit, push, and let it bounce. The 3-note where we reverse and take the left hand and hit, and as it's bouncing, start pushing. Hit the 3rd note, let it land on the 5th of the scale. Or start with the left, hit, and push, let it fall, push, and let it fall. And those are the 3 or 4 most commonly used rolls, or at least that I use most as I'm playing. Now don't get over anxious about learning a tune that you can put these in, because later on as we learn to do 3 or 4 of them, then we'll go back and we'll take a tune and we'll work through it and show how we could incorporate all of these into using each one of them as we play through a tune. So spend some time with this one, and when you're ready, go ahead on the film and we'll get into the next embellishments. Okay, the last little short segment, the embellishment I couldn't even think of the name of, the trill, we'll deal with just a little bit in this one. And this is really a simple thing to do. There's 2 or 3 different ways that you can do it. The easiest is where you hit your first note. Now this is very much like the note above, note below embellishment that we talked about on the first tape when we were working through Golden Slippers. And just so that you're up to date with me, on Golden Slippers, rather than going and picking that one note, we went a note above, a note below. So we're doing the same thing with the trill, except we're speeding it up, and it becomes a hit. So we've got a right, left, right to get into it. Now let's spend a little bit of time with Sweet Hour of Prayer. We had used this in the first tape, and used a lot of arpeggios in addition to the trills and the rolls that we're talking about. And the arpeggios that I'll be using is nothing more than what we talked about earlier with a 1, 3, 5, 8 chord pattern all the way through. And rather than having the pauses where you have with nothing going on, you can spice all this up with the embellishments that you use. So let's take a look at it and break it down. The first thing you'd want to start with is your 3rd harmonies. And we've already covered that. The harmony note is the 3rd note below your melody note. In this case, it would be right here. You can learn to use your cross bridges. And these are things that you just have to find what sounds best to you and begin to work through them. There's no hard and set rule as to which ones you would use at any given point. I try to mix mine up where each part of the song doesn't sound like the part that went just before it. But on Sweet Hour of Prayer, single note, 3-note roll. And I'm coming over and using the D on the bass bridge, the G, and the B over here. So the song goes right, left, 3-note roll, and then I follow that immediately up with a 4-note roll coming back up. Now I'm using some other stuff that we're going to go into in a minute, so don't panic and don't worry about all that other stuff that I'm doing. The drones, we'll cover all of that and how to use it. Right now, we want to talk about using the 3-note roll, using the trill, and then coming back and incorporating the 4-note roll or the arpeggio, if you want to call it that, because this really is not so much of a roll as it is the individual notes that go in the chord, which I simply use those to fill in instead of hitting one note and waiting for it to die out, or counting 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, now I'm ready to go to my next note. I go ahead and use the chord, and that pulls everything together and holds it in so that you have some motion going on. Now, I'll caution you, you can overdo it. You can really get to the point where you have so many embellishments in there that you can't follow the melody line. So be real careful about that. Try to use them tastefully, but again, don't be afraid to throw them in. One more time, let's look at it. Sweet Hour of Prayer. And let me play through the song all the way for you, much as I did on the first tape, and watch closely what my hands are doing and listen to the sounds that the different embellishments cause. All the way through that, I've used nothing more than what you're already familiar with. 2-note roll, 3-note roll, 4-note roll, using a 1, 3, 5, 8 chord pattern and working the arpeggios around it. Spend some time with the very specific things, and again, take your time with it. Enjoy what you're doing, and if you're not having fun right now, then get up and go do something else and come back. One thing that you need to really understand, boy, I go through so many cycles as far as creativity is concerned. And it's physically impossible for all of us to stay in a totally creative mode all the time. There are times that you're much more creative than others. There are times that you're not creative at all. So don't panic if you go a day or a week or a month or 6 months without learning something new. But practice every day and maintain what you have up to that point so that you don't have to go back and start completely over. Because it'll hit you like a light one of these days. You're going to be in a real creative mood and you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. And that'll make up for the time that you had where you didn't really learn anything at all. When I first started playing, I had a terrible time with this. I didn't have anybody show me. I had no lessons or anything, so I had to just start beating on it until I figured this stuff out. And I woke my wife up one night in the middle of the night, and I said, that's it. And I jumped up and I started. She'd like to throw me out of the house. You know, I think you can understand that. But that's the way it goes. So just spend time with it, relax, have a good time, and when you feel ready, go ahead and move on. On playing harmonies, I really wish I could figure some great, wonderful rule that would always be the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, the rule changes according to whether you're playing the first chord of the progression, the 4 chord, or whether you're into the 5/7 chord. And all of your notes that you use as far as harmonies need to fall within the chord structure of the song that you're working on. I've already talked about playing thirds, which is the third note above the root here, your melody, drop down, skip a note, and play the note below that. You can utilize the bass bridge over and getting a sound like that, and it gives you a little bit more depth in the song if you're using some of the lower notes, and it keeps everything from being bunched up together all in one general area on the instrument. But the way to find these, the easiest way, is if you say you're starting off on the G note, third position marker on my instrument, and come over on the right side of the treble bridge, if you take your hammer and just slide it down that string, and take the note below it, which in this case would be the marked position for middle C. In this case, that's D, E, or G, A, B, and over here we're playing the G. That's your harmony. Now do the same thing and drop down one note. Take a real close look at your instrument. Drop down here to the note below G. Take your hammer and slide it across. And if you'll see, it rests right in between the two strings. So take the string on the bottom, which in this case is the note below your middle C or the B. Skip that note and play the note below it. All you're doing is playing a form of an inverted third. If you take this, the G, play the octave, and do just like you did up here and count up 1, 2, skip the second one and play the third one. That's the chord progression that you would use. And this is the notes somewhere within that chord structure are the notes that you will fill in that you can use. You get one note within the chord structure and just use that to fill in. I use this on the South Wind song. The song is the introduction of the song. It's the introduction to the tape. There's the drone. And these are things that we'll work through a tune here in a few minutes and use them, but spend some time learning to use your hands independent of each other. And the drone is great for that because you have the right hand doing one thing over here, and you have the left one over here picking out the melody of the song. To go back to the very basics, do something like Mary Had a Little Lamb and use a drone between each one. Now to get you accustomed to using that individually. Now a form of the drone, or something that fits in real well with the drone, is a flam. And this is a great rhythmic move that you would use much like a drone. And this is it's difficult to accomplish. This was shown to me by Jerry Reed Smith in Black Mountain, North Carolina. It's great with Irish tunes. It really works in. I use it as an introduction to Lord Inchiquin. And it sounds like this. What I'm doing is using that to pick up my bass bridge or my cross bridge in conjunction with my harmony notes and my melody note all at the same time. So instead of playing one note or two notes, I'm actually able to play three. And then once you work with it for a while, you get where you come back and forth across with it and use it for fill-ins even more. But the way it's accomplished is, again, it's a rhythmic move. But the part that you need to work on is to hit and just pick a note. At this point, it doesn't make much difference because you'll begin to hear your thirds and your fifths as you're working across, and you'll know offhand right away if you're getting a wrong note somewhere. You'll be able to hear that. So go ahead and hit the note that you intend to play. In this case, let's go ahead and use the A above G. Hit it, just slightly slant your hammer. Turn it, this will be turning counterclockwise from the top, bring it back to the left, and slide your hammer over as you hit. And this is something that after a while will become a subconscious move. You're going to have to stop and think about, but at this point I want you to really exaggerate turning that hammer to force it to go ahead and slide over. Now don't go so far that you lay the hammer down, but use it to bring it over. Now this and on the drone, then we'll come back in and we're going to do Jesu Joy Man's Desirings. And I'll try to show how you can use the drones, the cross bridge harmonies, and then we'll take the idea of the flam and use not only it but expand it into a two-note roll. When you're on the bass bridge and you want a flam and have nowhere to go, I'll show you a shortcut around that. So take some time with the flams, work with the drones, and when you feel comfortable, go ahead and run. As we're talking about drones and using the flams, just a little bit for clarity's sake, with my right hand representing the bass bridge on my instrument as I face it. The right side, you have two strings that come over. From the treble side, there's one string that goes in between. On a flam move, the note that you're going to use is going to be either the note above or playing in the V between those two strings. Now on a drone, it's a little bit different, and on the illustration that I used, I maintain one note as my drone. You're going to find that as you work through songs, that's going to change according to the chord structure of the song that you're working in. So keeping that in mind and realizing too that we need to remain flexible, let's look at Jesu Joy of Man's Desirings. And what I'm going to show you, I got this information from John McCutcheon. I want to be sure and give him credit. It's a great arrangement for Jesu Joy of Man's Desirings, and you can really do a whole lot with it. We're going to start on the D, E, the F sharp. It's the first note of the song, and using the same principle on the F sharp and bring it across, skip the note that's at the bottom of the hammer and come down, which will put you at the A note above the G. That's your cross bridge harmony. And as we work through the song, I'll try to show you each individual lick. So what we have, single note with the right hand, left hand, cross bridge harmony, single note, cross bridge. Now here it changes because this note's not within the chord structure of where we're working. So this is where you have to watch your cross bridge harmonies. Okay, again. Cross bridge, single note, flam. One more time. Here we're using the octave. Straight across, using the fifth. And there's the drum. One more time. Cross bridge, single note, cross bridge, single note, cross bridge, single note, flam, single note, cross bridge. Alright, thirds. Okay, all I did right there was use the chord structure to help me fill in so that I don't have just this empty spot there. Then you're immediately right back into the cross bridge. Okay, all this is a 1-3-5-8. And utilizing my fifth across from a cross bridge, two-note harmony, to start it, single note, back down, two notes, single note. Okay, and as you work through that, spend some time with it. Now I told you I'd show you a shortcut to playing a flam, where you're on the bass bridge, single chord pattern, single roll, and utilize that like this, and you get much the same effect as if you were using a flam. And this again is something that's just going to take you some time. You're just going to have to work with it until you can get it down. But listen to what it does to the song. Here we get to the drums. And I'm going to try to slow that down so that you can see what I'm doing, and then we'll move back into the drone section again. So I'm starting here and rolling and ending up over here. So I have a cross bridge harmony in a two-note roll, ending on my melody note. So all I'm doing is just letting that rascal bounce a couple of times. So it's hit, bounce, hit. Okay, this little part right here is nothing more than using the thirds, keeping your hammers together with a string between, all the way down, then working the chord. Very simple to do once you sit down and break it down. Then back to your cross bridge with a roll. Alright, here we change. Since we're using the roll over here, we'll go into a 3-note roll. And I don't know if I can slow this down enough without losing momentum on the strings, but it's cross bridge, single note, and then you hit this one again and roll from there to there. So bounce, hit, and a push. Bring it back across. Then for the second part of the song, your harmonies, come back across and catch your 5th below your cross bridge that we used. And this becomes a drum. I keep coming right back to that note, right here. We're right back to the G to the A, right here, back to the A for the drum. There's your flam. Then we move to a minor with a drum. Double harmonies, thirds. I'm just using a 3-note roll coming back. Octaves. Then back again to the main theme. At this point you're probably saying, good grief, but it's okay. It will come with time. Just spend time looking for those cross bridges, and if you never get beyond that right there, it's okay. Take your time and enjoy it and have fun with it. Don't let it get you down. So many times people become discouraged. Well, why can't I get it to sound like that? Boy, I wish I could sit here and tell you with a straight face that I sounded like this 6 months after I've been playing, or a year, or even 2 years after I started playing, that I have been able to use this technique. And I probably will sit a year from now and look back and say, boy, I can't believe I did that sloppy, because I intend to keep improving, just as I know that you intend to work and keep improving also. Let's go through it one more time. And I had mentioned on the first tape that we did about changing keys. Now we're in the key of D right here as we're doing this. I'll show you a real quick move that you can make to shift the whole song up and do it in the key of G. And I got this from the Stray Away Child album, Jerry Reed Smith in Black Mountain, North Carolina. He makes a shift up into the key of G, plays through the song, and then makes a run back down and winds up back down in the key of D. And remember now, just like when you play your 1, 3, 5, 8 patterns, to change keys, you don't change what you do, you change where you do it. So let's go through the song, and I'll go ahead and use the rolls like we were talking about. Here it is. Instead of coming up here and catching the 8, move up to your C and catch that. Just a single note from the C main thing of the song. Here you reverse the pattern, and you're already here. You just move straight across the G, single note down, and then you're right back into something new. 3-note roll, moving up on one side. And that's a little technique that you can work on. It's the same principle. Just hit and bounce and push it on up. You have to spend some time with it. I think that it's a technique that's well worth learning. I think it's one you'll really enjoy working with. But it is one that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort on your part. And I'll caution you too, once you learn to use it and learn to use it well, you really need to work on it often to keep it up. It's the type of thing that, I don't know, it's like riding a bicycle. You may never really forget how, but you sure can get rusty at it. So you need to keep up the licks and work on each one of these embellishments every day, as well as trying to go ahead and add a new embellishment to it each day. Spend some time with it. I hope that you're having fun again, and when you're ready, well, let's move on to the next segment. I'm sure in the last segment you caught the mistake that I made there whenever I was up in the C part, up in here on Yesa Joy Man's Designs. And it had really been my intention to try to do a totally flawless instructional tape. But after about 47 days in the studio, we decided that wasn't going to happen. And I pointed out just simply to say that it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Resolve yourself to it. I'm going to make mistakes. And I really haven't heard any performances by some of the best pros that I haven't been able to pick out something in there that I thought was a mistake, or that maybe was and wasn't, or whatever. The main thing is enjoy what you're doing, relax, and have fun with it. I can't stress that enough, because if you're not enjoying yourself, then you need to be doing something else. And come back to the Dulcimer whenever it's convenient for you, when you can really enjoy what you're doing. There's one other little brief thing that I want to share with you, and then we'll be closing this segment out. On the South Wind, which is a song that was playing at the introduction of the tape, I want to use a part of that and show you how we can go back and use our 1-3-5-8 chord structure that we've talked about as a fill. As I'm playing this, listen, because you're going to hear almost all of the embellishments that we've used, with the exception of the flam in the South Wind. And I may even try to throw that in there if I can find a convenient place. But I'll be using a 2-note roll, 3-note roll, 4-note roll. I'm going to be dealing with drums and with using the arpeggios for fill-ins. And I'm going to try to do this without interrupting and going through. At this point in time, you've learned what you need to know to be able to pick up most any song and really begin to play and to play well and to know what embellishments to put into it. So you might just kind of sit and listen to this one and observe my hammers. I'm going to ask our cameraman, if he can, to come in pretty close on my hands and just watch as I play this and see what you can get from it. And I will show you that the roll that I'm going to use, the song normally would stop here and you would have a pause where nothing's happening. And I'm going to try to come down and catch, starting at the G note, and use a 2-octave arpeggio coming back in as a fill note to bring all that back in and tie it all together like we talked about way back earlier on some of the stuff that we've done. Song begins like this. And before I go into this, on my recording under the Double Eagle, I used it in conjunction as a medley with conjunction as a medley with Planks de Irwin. That was just my choice. And then led into the south wind with it. You can do some switching around and some changing and all that kind of stuff. One of the most fun things that you can do when you really get depressed and things are not going good, take something and change the tempo on it. Just go from a 4/4 time to a 3/4 time. And I was teasing my daughter about being a stubborn as a mule. And I've been working on the flop-eared mule, which goes. Anyway, I took that and I wrote what I call Christie's Waltz. And I think that she really resents me playing this because I just took the flop-eared and real pretty like this. Again, nonsensical stuff, just something you can do to enjoy yourself and have a good time. Now back to business, the south wind, the arpeggio, fill in, and I'll play this probably a little bit slower than I normally would, so maybe you can pick up on what I'm doing. There's the arpeggio. Real nice, pretty arrangement. Again, something that you can just play with and enjoy and have a good time. Take the idea of using the arpeggios as fill-ins. Again, this is like anything else that you do. You can overdo it. You can overdo the flams or any of the embellishments, but if you try to switch some of them around as you're playing and try not to get them all falling together, don't always start your arpeggios at the bottom and come up. You can start at the top and work down with them. You can start at the top, split it up, break it up, do anything that you want to with it. The only hard and fast rule is no one knows how this thing should be done. So you can do it any way you want to. There's my way, their way, and now you have your way. Thank you so much for joining us for this particular segment. I hope that we've answered some questions for you. I hope that this has been real beneficial. We intend to do another one of these, a revised version, at some point in time. And we really would welcome your constructive criticisms, questions, anything that you have that you feel like we didn't cover that would have been beneficial for you. please let us know. My address and Gene and Lee Schilling will have their address at the end of the tape, and also on the sleeve on the insert for the package. You'll find the addresses there, so please let us know what you think. And I'm going to close out with an original composition entitled Lover's Waltz, and I'm going to use my Texas-style hammers for this. Nah, just kidding. End up with this thing. Just have fun. That's what it's all about.